Okay. Alhamdulillah. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So today inshallah ta'ala we'll be continuing discussing Al-Arba'in An-Nawawiyya, and we have ended Hadith التاسع والعشرون 29. So today we start Hadith الثلاثون. So we'll be starting the 30th Hadith in this series by An-Nawawi rahimahullah, and so today inshallah ta'ala we'll start a Hadith with the normal method that we follow, which is the Hadith to be read, and then we'll discuss concerning the Rawi or the Sahabi, if he's someone who's new, and also we'll start discussing other matters relating to the Hadith that is mentioned. So first inshallah ta'ala we'll have the Hadith read and then start our discussion. Aywa.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. عن أبي ثعلبة الخشاني جرثوم بن الناشر رضي الله تعالى عنه عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال: إن الله تعالى فرض فرائض فلا تضيعوها، وحد حدودا فلا تعتدوها، وحرم أشياء فلا تنتهكوها، وسكت عن أشياء رحمة لكم غير نسيان فلا تبحثوا عنها. حديث حسن رواه الدارقطني وغيره. Hadith number 30, the rights of Allah the Exalted. On the authority of Abu Tha'laba al-Khushani Jurthum ibn al-Nashir radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he said: Allah the Exalted prescribed religious duties, so do not neglect them. He set boundaries, so do not surpass them. He has prohibited some things, so do not violate them. He remains silent about some things as a mercy for you and not due to forgetfulness, so do not search for them. Hadith Hasan, related by Ad-Daraqutni and others.
Now, so that's the hadith that is read, as we mentioned, hadith number 30 in this series by An-Nawawi rahimahullah. So as the hadith has been read, we mentioned an Abi Tha'laba Khushani. So most of the books or most of the explanation, they mention his name up to that point. So you find most of the shuruh that will mention Abi Tha'laba and Abi Tha'laba Khushani Jarthum. So added to this, some of the books may have Jarthum ibn Nashir. So but most that when they mention of his name, they mention an Abi Tha'laba al-Khushani. But some add addition to this Jarthum ibn Nashir Rata'ala anhu, and he mentioned the hadith that is mentioned. So as for that, they mention the end of the hadith Hadithun Hasanun Rawahu Daraqutni wa ghayru. So as for what we'll discuss concerning the hadith, yahmakullah, that regard the hadith. So the first in line that we know we'll cover is regarding after the hadith concerning takhrij of the hadith. So the first in line is regarding takhrij of the hadith, and they will mention something regarding the sahabi. So as for takhrij of the hadith, meaning concerning takhrij of the hadith, that is trying to identify some of the sources, the main source of this hadith, or some of those sources of the hadith, and also give the aqwal of the ulama regarding this particular hadith, so the judgment of the ulama pertaining to the hukum of this hadith. So as for the hadith that has been mentioned, as the author rahimahullah, he mentioned An-Nawawi, that he mentioned Hadithun Hasan, that's concerning his judgment. So Hadithun Hasan, then that's the judgment that he has passed. So instead of Hadith Hasan, that his hadith is graded as Hasan, meaning Maqbul. Then I mentioned Rawahu Daraqutni wa ghayru, and that hadith have been narrated, been compiled by Ad-Daraqutni, and also wa ghayru. That as for this particular hadith that have been mentioned, that those who have collected the hadith by way of takhrij are some of the sources of the hadith they mentioned, Ad-Daraqutni. So the hadith is collected by Ad-Daraqutni. Also Al-Bayhaqi. So Daraqutni in his book As-Sunan, that book As-Sunan Ad-Daraqutni is in print. Then you have Al-Bayhaqi in his Sunan Al-Kabir or Sunan Al-Kubra. So Bayhaqi in his Sunan Al-Kubra. Also third, the hadith is collected by Al-Khatib Al-Baghdadi. So Khatib Al-Baghdadi in his book Al-Faqih wa Mutafaqqih. So he has this book, Khatib Baghdad rahimahullah, that discusses concerning the excellence of ilm and talabat al-ilm, and he covered this topic in detail in this book, Al-Faqih wa Mutafaqqih. Then also the hadith collected by Al-Hakim in his book Al-Mustadrak. So Al-Hakim in his book Al-Mustadrak. So he said of the thing with Al-Hakim in his book Al-Mustadrak, that of those who, when he compiled this book Al-Mustadrak, that of the condition that whatever he collected is authentic. So it's an indirect indication when a hadith is in the Al-Hakim and even his Mustadrak, that a hadith is looked upon as being authentic, sahih, in general. Then also of those who have collected this hadith, that they have mentioned Ibn Battah Al-Qubri, Al-Akbari. So Ibn Battah Al-Uqbari in his book Al-Ibana Al-Kubra. So he has this book which is a book in Aqidah. So Ibn Battah, he has this book called Al-Ibana Al-Kubra. Portion of it is in print, and that's the larger version, and a Sugra, that is more the smaller version, then that's also in print, the full print of the Sugra. And I think Sugra has been translated from what I can recall. But as for Al-Kubra, Ibana Al-Kubra, that these are books that cover concerning matters of Aqidah. As we mentioned yesterday, that concerning that this book of Ibn Battah will be one of the main books of Aqidah of the ulama of the past. Then also we have Ibn Jawzi in his book Dhanb al-Hawa. So Ibn Jawzi in his book Dhanb al-Hawa. So the name that we have mentioned today so far, we have Daraqutni, just so, and we have Bayhaqi, we have Khatib al-Baghdadi. Then we have Ibn Jawzi, that we were mentioned yesterday regarding some of the name of famous writers. Then these ones will be at the top of that list amongst them. Especially from the ulama of that generation of the 4th and the 5th generation, then they will be of those ones who have authored many works. So Daraqutni, Bayhaqi, Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, Ibn Jawzi. I didn't mention somebody, I don't think I mentioned some of these names yesterday. So a few names, many names that we have missed. So Nawawi will be included in the one that we had mentioned to be met. So, but these are of those ones. Ibn Jawzi, we mentioned Ibn Jawzi, I think. Then you have Ibn Jawzi, you have Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi. They're two different persons. We say Ibn Jawzi yesterday, the one sometimes he writes, and sometimes you will have some things that needs to be just reviewed carefully. So those are some of the sources of this particular hadith. So these are of those ones I mentioned, Abu Na'im in his book Al-Hilyah. So these are of those who have collected this particular hadith. And as mentioned by, so that's concerning of the sources that I mentioned the hadith, that have just been read. The hadith of Abi Tha'laba Al-Khushani. As for the hukum, so those are some of the sources of this hadith, and each have their own isnad. So those are the ones who mention hadith with isnad. All of those isnad goes back to Mahkul, Ashami, and Abi Tha'laba Al-Hadith. So every kind of somewhat centered around Al-Mahkul and Abi Tha'laba Al-Hadith. With this particular hadith, and also they have mentioned that those of somewhat critique hadith Al-Arba'in, that I mentioned, so the hadith of Abi Tha'laba, this one is in front of us, but also you find other companions have mentioned hadith similar. Slight difference in word, but similar. So of them, Abi Darda. So you have similar, but all of those hadith are somewhat also, they are somewhat criticized. So all those who said supporting hadith, they call them shawahid wa mutabat, that also those hadith also under some discussion. So you have other companions that have narrated similar hadith. It is mentioned here by Ibn Rajab rahimahullah in his explanation. So Ibn Rajab rahimahullah in his explanation of the book, that he mentioned هذا hadith من رواية المحكول عن أبي ثعلبة الخشني وله إلتان. So Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, he can somewhat explain that this particular hadith that we're discussing, that this hadith, that there's some criticism against this hadith. So he mentioned that the criticism of this hadith, that it falls into two types of illah, which is criticism of the hadith. So reason why the hadith will be considered to be da'if. He mentioned the first of those, أن محكول لم يصح له سماع عن أبي ثعلبة. That the first of the criticism of the hadith is that this hadith said is by Mahkul Ashami. That they mentioned there's nothing authentic that he narrates upon Abi Tha'laba. So there's nothing that validates that or can confirm that Mahkul, he heard the hadith from Abi Thalaba. So they show that there's an inqita. So he's saying that there's an inqita, that there's a breakage in the isnad. Nam, because one, so that's concerning and of the ulama who have stated that, Abu Naim and others. The second of the illah of the hadith, so the second of the criticism of the hadith that I mentioned, اختلف في رفع ووقف. So that also the second criticism of the hadith that the ulama have mentioned of hadith, that the hadith is criticized by way of, there's a khilaf between the ulama of hadith regarding that is the hadith actually goes back to the Prophet ﷺ. Some narration mention goes back to the Prophet and other does not. That it goes back to Abi Thalaba. And some mention it's a statement of Mahkul. So you have that discussion regarding the hadith that is it marfu, going back to the Prophet ﷺ or to others. So you have that discussion also. So something you find cases like that. Sometimes you find cases like that with a khilaf between ulama, is this hadith upon the Prophet ﷺ or the statement of someone else that has been attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. So you have that discussion regarding this particular hadith. That Daraqutni that you have mentioned here, who have collected this hadith, mentioned Ashba bis Sawab, that what seems more correct is that the hadith is marfu'. وهو أشهر, and he mentioned this is more known, this is more renowned. So by this, An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he authenticated the hadith. So by this, that An-Nawawi rahimahullah, all the hadith to be Hasan. Now, the thing we're concerned with An-Nawawi rahimahullah regarding his judgment on hadith. So concerning the judgment of the ulama of their judgment on hadith, that they fall into different categories. So we can put them into three. Now, that those who are said to be mutasahil, those are somewhat they are lenient. Those who are lenient on their judgment on hadith. Now, so you have that group of the scholars. Then you have, and they mentioned, that's those, and it's more common regarding concerning scholars of latter times. For instance, latter time, they don't mean our generation, from centuries before. So from the time of An-Nawawi and downwards, you find a lot of considered ulama of hadith who criticize hadith or talk about hadith. At times, they are considered to be lenient. So Nawawi will fall into that category, and others, Suyuti and others will fall into that category of, at times, that they are considered to be lenient in their judgment. That you have and others of contemporary, and others of contemporary also, they will put them in the same category. Then you have others who that they are more, the ones who are more, not the ones who are more mu'tadil, the ones that are more balanced in their approach. So you have those ones, and they kind of somewhat said the scholars of old. So if you can get their ruling on a hadith, and those who follow their method, which are a few. So the scholars of old regarding their approach regarding hadith, compared to those who came after, who became somewhat more complacent, based upon those who are considered to be more complacent, based upon that they start to approach ilm al-hadith based upon some of the rules and guidelines set by the usuliyin wal fuqaha. With me? So regarding concerning hadith discussion, it falls into two fields. Al-hadith, and their rules are very, and their system is in place. Then also you'll find of those who discuss concerning hadith, al-fuqaha wa usuliyin. So in the books of usul fiqh, they'll discuss concerning the bab of sunnah. So in the bab of sunnah, as a dalil, they'll discuss concerning matters regarding hadith. But sometimes their rules are more lenient than that of al-hadith. And you find that a lot of their, but some of their rules that they apply and follow, sometimes is adopted by some of the people of hadith, of some of those who wrote in hadith of latter time. So you find sometimes that they are criticized for being lenient. They are criticized. So An-Nawawi rahimahullah at times is criticized for his leniency on his judgment on hadith, and others. So we said that An-Nawawi rahimahullah all hadith to be authentic, but then they have mentioned that even Salah also is there's two groups. I put it in. So said that the fuqaha other is a group. You have Ahl Hadith, but the ones who followed up the path of the fuqaha, then we put them all in the same group. Yeah, so you have so you find at a certain time, like after Khatib al-Baghdadi, Ibn Salah, and those who came after, they were affected, like everyone else, or like others, where some of the aqwal of the usuliyin was placed upon or was followed by some of the ulama of hadith. Or influenced to some degree. So, for example, in this matter that's being discussed, we said the hadith is a khilaf between ulama regarding the hadith being what? Marfu or mawquf. The hadith being what? Going back to the Prophet ﷺ, and going back to the Sahabi. So the fuqaha, we see it as the fact that it is marfu or mawquf, then we take the more, then the others, they are more pushed towards is marfu. Then go back to the Prophet ﷺ. Can you see it as khilaf between al-waqf wal-raf, then they are more inclined towards it being marfu. As for Ali, then they'll double check. But for them, they can somewhat more would as easily lean towards it being marfu. And because all the narrators are generally considered to be thiqat, they mentioned that ziyadat thiqa maqboola, that the person who's thiqat, if they are thiqat, and the narration, we just ordinarily accept it. Now, even though you might find a slight difference regarding some say it is marfu and some say it is mawquf. So the fuqaha, their rules are not that as stringent. Very, at times, lenient. Then also, they mention of those who have authenticated the hadith, other than Nawawi rahimahullah, that they have mentioned concerning Hasan qablahu, and Nawawi rahimahullah, Hafiz Abu Bakr ibn Sam'ani, in his book, Amali. So of those who kind of somewhat have proceeded in authenticated the hadith by saying it is Hasan. Then we mentioned Ibn Rajab rahimahullah and many others, all the hadith to be, even Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, of contemporary, all the hadith to be daif. So that's concerning what is mentioned regarding this particular hadith. So they mentioned that the hadith have two main issues regarding inqita, that is a breakage in the isnad, and second regarding al-ikhtilaf, regarding it being marfu or mawquf. And of others who hold that the inqita is somewhat clear in the hadith. So the next matter will be regarding concerning that, as we mentioned, that some may hold a hadith to be daif because of that inqita, that breaks in isnad. But because we said it have other sahabi who have narrated similar of them, Abi Darda and others who have narrated hadith that are similar to this, they said if you add those a week with hadith that is also weak, then they'll give each other strength. We said that that's a rule that is there, but there's rules regarding how it is applied. At times you might have a rule that is, the rule is a valid rule, but the issue is how to apply that rule, where some might have applied it in any case, where there's still some condition that relates or guidelines related to that rule, and knowing how to apply them correctly. So it doesn't mean that every hadith that is da'if plus every hadith that is da'if, that they give strength. There's rules that are in place regarding in what case and circumstance this rule is applied and not applied. So that's concerning in general regarding the hadith that have been mentioned here. So there's some khilaf between the ulama regarding this hadith, that of those who have mentioned the hadith is da'if, and I've stated the reason. And as we mentioned, that the hadith of other narrations from other sahabi, that other narration concerning Salman al-Farisi, that is similar. Also Abi Darda, that's also similar. So that's concerning that particular hadith. So the next matter that we'll go to is regarding, before we go to the next matter concerning the sahabi, that ad-Daraq. We go back to the sahabi that is mentioned. So as for al-tarjuma li-as-sahabi مذكور So of those who all the hadith to be daif, you have Ibn Adi, and also you have Ibn Rajab amongst those who all the hadith to be daif. Then as for al-Rawi, al-Hadith, who's Abu Tha'laba. So as mentioned here, they said his name is Abu Tha'laba al-Khushani. As for his name, so that's concerning that Abu Tha'laba is his kunya. Abu Tha'laba, that's his kunya. As for his actual name, there's a khilaf regarding what's his name and his father's name. So you have a khilaf between the ulama regarding his exact name. You have this discussion between the ulama. So as mentioned, so you have different aqwal as to what his actual name. And that of his so of those who mentioned, his name is Jurthum ibn Nashiz. Of those mentioned, Jurham. As for his father's name, you have Nashiz or Nashir, Nashib, Nashij, Nashir, Abdul Kareem, Las, and many. And so you have Nashim. So you have all these names that are mentioned. So there's a long discussion regarding that, identifying his name or pointing out his name. But you have that khilaf between the ulama regarding this matter. But as for him, he's more famous for his kunya than his name. So he's more famous for his kunya than his name. As for this particular Sahabi, so that is well known amongst the Sahaba and of those who were present concerning Al-Bay' Al-Ridwan that occurred after in the 60th of the Hijrah. So in the 60th of the Hijrah, he was a part of that of those who made this Al-Bay'. Also the Prophet ﷺ in Al-Khaybar, that also allotted him his own share or his own portion. And also of the Sahabi who was sent to his people and to bring to them Islam, and they accepted Islam from him. So of those who were sent back to his people, and he called them to Islam, and they accepted Islam from him. As for Madina's wafat, that I mentioned that Nazal Sham wa mata biha, that he entered Asham and he died in Sham. They mentioned that he died in Sham, Sana 75 lil Hijrah, that he died the 75th year of the Hijrah. So they mentioned that he died 75th year of Al-Hijrah. He said that he narrated over Arba'un Hadith, that he narrated over 40 Hadith in the books of Hadith. So that's concerning in brief regarding that particular Sahabi. Then Ibn Rajab, Ibn Nawawi rahimahullah, when he mentioned Hadithun Sahih, Hadithun Hasan, Rawahu Darakutni. So in most part, when he mentioned most of the other hadith, that he usually mentioned the more renowned books of the Sunnah. So ordinarily, or before, in previous hadith that you have mentioned, that An-Nawawi rahimahullah, that he will mention ordinarily the name of the books that are well known. But in this case, he mentioned Rawahu Darakutni. So you might find that the books of hadith that are said Kutubu Sitta or Tis'a, there are ones that are more well known. So the books of Darakutni may known but may not be that as well known. So it is known to be one of the books of the Sunnah but may not be known as common amongst all. No, yes, as so said that you have Kutubu Sitta, so it's outside Kutubu Sitta, it's outside Kutubu Tis'a. So it's of those books that is known but not as popular as others. But it's known, so that the book of Ad-Darakutni.
Is there an age as to when Abu Tha'laba passed away?
They said 50,
When he died, when he passed away?
a year, said 75 Hijri.
How old was he, sorry?
Not sure. So certain with so generally concerning, as we mentioned, that some of the books of Sunnah sometimes are more well known to most. Even among concerning Tullabul Ilm. And you might find some of those books of the Sunnah may not be that well known or familiar with by most. Now, even some Tullab may not be aware of it. You with me? No. Because it's not as popular. No. Not as popular. So you find concern. So the ulama of hadith concerned to know that they may be more aware of these books compared maybe to others at times. So generally concerned Ad-Daraqutni rahimahullah, one of the ulama of hadith, one of the kibar ulama of hadith. So Ad-Daraqutni rahimahullah, that his kunya is Abu Hassan. So it's Abu Hassan Ali ibn Umar ibn Ahmed ibn Mahdi al-Baghdadi Ad-Daraqutni. So his name is kunya Abu al-Hassan Ali ibn Umar ibn Ahmed ibn Mahdi al-Baghdadi Ad-Daraqutni. So the area in Baghdad that was called, that he lived in that area. They're called Al-Qutun. So Dar Al-Qutun was an area within Baghdad. As for his birth, year of birth, 306, so 306, and he died 385. He died the year 385. So birth 306, death 385. Sorry? 79 years. Takriban 79 years. Then as for concerning Sanaf, the ulama upon him, then it is clear concerning that Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, Ibn Kathir, and many of kind of somewhat mentioned regarding that, he said to be of those concerned that, in hadith, regarding concerning Imam fi waqti, that in hadith he considered to be an Imam, he was the Imam of al-Hadith in his time, or a person who have reached the status of Imam in the field of hadith. We even mentioned ينتهي إليه علم الأثر, that during his time ilm of hadith kind of came to end with him. That also is known to, especially concerned that he have many works, as we'll discuss. So he have many books. So and a lot of those books related to ilm al-hadith. So a lot of his works related to ilm al-hadith, and also some of the more complex matter regarding ilm al-hadith. So Daraqutni rahimahullah, that he mentioned, as they mentioned regarding concern that he said to be an alim, hafiz, faqih, ala madhab Imam Shafi. But he was more inclined towards the madhab of Imam Shafi rahimahullah ta'ala. As for his works, that he has just mentioned a few, he has many works in hadith. So of those who said that I've written a lot in ilm al-hadith and in different ilm al-hadith. So he has as-Sunan Ad-Daraqutni. I said that one is in print. I think I have many people have worked on that book, Sunan Ad-Daraqutni. There's a few prints of that book. Also, you have a famous book that is called Al-Ilal Waridat fi Ahadith al-Nabawiyya. Al-Ilal Al-Warida fi Ahadith al-Nabawiyya. And that book, they said, is of that book is you could say one of the wonders of a book, of someone writing a book. It's considered to be one of those wonders. What is those rare books? The book of Ad-Daraqutni, which is called Al-Ilal Al-Warida fi Ahadith al-Nabawiyya. So that book concerning Ilal, where if you read it, you wouldn't understand unless you understand ilm al-hadith at an advanced level. And also to understand the book properly, you need to have like a chart they call Shajarat al-Isnad to understand what he's saying and put things in order. So the book, but overall concern for in ilm al-hadith is one of those masterpieces. And also he wrote in the sciences that many do not master, which is ilm al-ilal. So that work of is become like a masterpiece on this particular science concerning ilm al-ilal, of the work of Ad-Daraqutni rahimahullah. Also of his more famous book that he have done, which is also, so that's one of his famous work. Then of a more famous work that he does, that got a lot of attention, that is this one. So it's called Ilzamat wa Tatabbu. It's two separate books, but they're printed in one. Ilzamat وتتبع, which is the second one, which is ilzamat, where he mentioned that ilzamat, where tatabba, that things that Bukhari and Muslim, that he believed that were on their condition, they did not mention. So ilzam, Bukhari and Muslim. Then tatabbu now is another book that he did, where he check those ahadith. He's one of those who criticized the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. So Daraqutni, he went and checked Sunnah Hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. So check the entire work of Bukhari and Muslim. But then he came out with X amount of hadith, a certain hadith that he critiqued. So this is that work. And this work, the book that I'm showing here, is a master's thesis by Sheikh Muqbil ibn Hadi al-Wadi. So in Medina University, Sheikh Muqbil, for his master's thesis, I didn't finish his PhD, that he did this as his master's thesis. So Sheikh from what that when he was doing this book, that some particular individuals from some of the Mashaykh, that they kind of somewhat, they see it as that, because they said the Asl of Sheikh Muqbil rahimullah, that is from Yemen, and also from the region of Yemen, they are Zaydiyya. So Zaydiyya / Shia. So he was from that, studied there, then he came to Hijaz and studied a part of Islamic University in Medina during that time. But as a student also, he's of those who kind of somewhat was a top student and his own student. But when he was doing this thesis, then you find that some of those of the other teachers, they were somewhat seen as, because of his approach regarding going back to the hadith, an authentic hadith regarding Islam, that they see it as, some people kind of somewhat tried to accuse him that he's trying to attack Bukhari and Muslim. Some see it as him doing a checking of this book is like him trying to bring out those who have attacked Bukhari and Muslim. He's now trying to revive this, which was not the intention of the Shaykh, from what you understand. But it's a book that is there and known. So one did some work on it. So he did, that was his thesis. So kind of someone have his own notes regarding at times, regarding concerning the hadith that are criticized, that is said Daraqutni. So he's not Daraqutni, not the only one. But his work is after more famous of those that are there, or one of the renowned ones that are there. So at times then, Sheikh Muqbil will see and say, does he agree with Daraqutni or with Bukhari and Muslim? So is that, but this matter said is hadithiyah. It's not based upon, you understand? It's based upon qawaid al-ilm al-hadith, regarding critiquing of Bukhari and Muslim. Then another who did some work on this, not on this, but also we said that a book that is titled Bayna Imamain al-Muslim wa Daraqutni. Who does that? Who did that? And that book, Bayna Imamain, between the two Imam, al-Muslim, Muslim wa Daraqutni. Muslim and Daraqutni, because again it's like a continuation of this. So is those ahadith that Daraqutni criticized in particular in Sahih Muslim. That's what the title is named, Bayna Imamain, between the two Imam, Muslim and Daraqutni, where Daraqutni criticized, this is an extension of this, other half of this, those hadith that he criticized in Sahih Muslim in particular. Which of them is correct? What's the situation with this? So that work was done by Sheikh Rabi' bin Hadi al-Madkhali, غفر الله له و ثبت الله تعالى. So Sheikh Rabi' حفظ الله تعالى, he did that work. So that was of his thesis. So that became concerning. So of those that someone gave attention to those matter regarding the criticism of Daraqutni, regarding Bukhari and Muslim. And you have others who come after and do something similar. Those are early ones regarding this particular discussion. Both said Daraqutni, of those who criticize some hadith in Bukhari and Muslim that are well known. As for concern this particular they mentioned Hamita had a hadith, as for the importance of this particular hadith that they have mentioned. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, I've mentioned Ibn Sam'ani, I've mentioned had a hadith aslan kabir, min usul al-din. That this particular hadith is considered to be one of the important foundation regarding matters relating to the usul of the deen. So this hadith is considered as to be discussed. Then also of those who are mentioned, ليس في أحاديث رسول الله عليه السلام حديث واحد أجمع بانفراده لأصول العلم وفروع من حديث أبي الثعلبة. Hadith ثعلبة. So this hadith of Abi Tha'laba kind of somewhat it covers regarding for a single hadith regarding matter related to usul al-ilm, the furu' that can be extracted from this particular hadith. As they mentioned, this particular hadith it discussed concerning what are those matters that are said to be fard, what are those things matter when a person should not, as since the person should not overstep those boundaries. What are those hudud, those boundaries set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not to overstep them and go beyond. Those things which is haram, and also those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have remained silent upon. So the ahkam that relates to fara'id, those hudud, those matter which is said to be haram, and those matter which is maskut anhu, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not pass a judgment on those things. So what's the ruling? So those are the things to be discussed regarding which concern to give the person usul regarding al-istinbat. So regarding concerning this matter regarding concerning what is deemed to be wajib, what is deemed to be these hudud, what are these things which is haram, what is deemed to be haram, and what ruling that goes with it, and also those things which is maskut anhu, those things where the Sharia haven't spoke about those things. So what is the ruling on those things? Is it halal, haram? Because there's no clear judgment on those matters. So what is the position to be taken on matters of that type? So those are the things to be discussed regarding this particular hadith, which is clarifying to the ahkam al-shar'iyyah. So as I mentioned in the bab of usul al-fiqh, so this hadith can somewhat give us some insight regarding matters relating to the qawaid usul al-fiqh. What is wajib? So you have concerning usul al-fiqh, that knowing concerning al-masadir al-tashri'. What are the sources that one can use as a form of evidence or a form of proof regarding Islamic matters? What are those things? So identify of those things of usul al-fiqh that a person, when a person have this ilm, the person is able to identify what are said to be valid dalil. What are said to be dalil. Based upon what have been discussed by the ulama. What are those ones that said to be the primary one, the fundamental ones, and those ones that are supporting dalil. So these are masadir tashri'. Then also of those things that will be covered regarding concerning usul al-fiqh will be what is discovered in this, somewhat what is covered in this hadith regarding that there are things concerning that regarding concerning that ahkam al-shar'iyyah. What are ahkam al-shar'iyyah? Something says something is wajib, something is mustahab, something is sunnah, something is makruh, something is mustahab, something is haram, something is halal. What do we mean by these terms? So concerning that al-ahkam al-shar'iyyah, then it will cover these things. So you have ahkam al-shar'iyyah of two types. So you have taklifiyah, which are those ones that are mentioned. Then you have al-wad'i, which is what is shart. We say something is a condition. What is meant by this? Ruqsa, azima. So also you have those words that is a part of those terminology used by the fuqaha regarding judgment placed on things. With me? So is knowing those things. So the person who wants to pass judgment on things, you have to understand that language within usul al-fiqh. Then so that's concerning so the person knowing of these ahkam, what are they? And some of those things to be discussed regarding identify what are considered to be ahkam al-shar'iyyah that are mu'tabar. Qawl al-sahabi, is it mu'tabar? Al-ijma', qiyas, al-istihsan, al-shar'a man qablana. What are these evidence that we can use? So for the talib, knowing those things, what is halal, what is haram, so knowing what is meant by these terms amongst the ulama. So the next that will be concerned, so of those things to be discussed. So that inshallah, so more concerning those terminology, concerning the person understanding the terminology used by the fuqaha and the ulama in general. So you have fard al-ain, fard al-kifaya. wajib muwaqqat, wajib ghayr muwaqqat. So you have all these things. Naam, so in the fuqaha, so studying also, it shows also from this that the importance of studying concerning ilm al-usul al-fiqh. Naam, so a person for them, you understand, so for a person to understand the Sharia, for a talib, he must also have a well-grounded in usul al-fiqh. Naam, even mentioned, ulama mentioned concerning that the issue of usul al-fiqh, what is called usul al-fiqh today, that for example, Imam, who was the first writer in this field, that the book that I've reached was the first book. Shafi, what is the book called? Usul al-fiqh. La, usul al-fiqh by Shafi, الرسالة. They have a discussion regarding who the first writer and who's what have reached us. But they mentioned concerning some of the ulama, when they wrote in usul al-fiqh, they didn't write usul al-fiqh. They write usul. Ilm al-usul. As these principles are meant, so usul al-fiqh, what we have today, is more related to al-fiqh. It doesn't discuss concerning qawaid regarding, they'll say qawaid regarding, for example, aqidah. Would not be discussing usul al-fiqh. But I mentioned the ulama of old when they discuss concerning usul al-fiqh, because they see if the usul regarding understanding of all the other science, whether aqidah, hadith, tafsir, and fiqh, that a person need all of these principles as to understand a sharia properly. So you need usul al-fiqh to a degree for a person to understand the sharia properly, where you know how to extract rulings and also how to apply them properly. So as we yesterday we discussed concerning fiqh. So al-fiqh, the person going to fiqh, it was divided into fiqh regarding understanding of usul al-fiqh. That's one of the field. Qawaid al-fiqhiyya, maqasid al-sharia. So these are the principles and guidelines that one follow. Usul al-fiqh, what as we said? Qawahid al-shar'iyya, fiqhiyya, and maqasid al-shar'iyya, and you have books in all those three fields. You have said all those fields are treated as separate books. Then for fiqh, the person called fiqh, whether we can follow fiqh al-muqarin or fiqh al-mathabi. You follow that's the mathab, or you study fiqh by al-muqarin, or the person, so that's the person who wants to study fiqh in detail. So you might find a person that for a person to be a proper faqih, he must have usul al-fiqh. But today you might find a person who is discussing fiqh, but they don't have much in usul al-fiqh to know the person level of depth in that field. With me? Can I find some mashayikh that they are famous for books in fiqh, but they have no works in usul al-fiqh. And you have those who famous for works in usul al-fiqh and have nothing in fiqh. So you have the theory, which is usul al-fiqh and the principles, and fiqh now becomes the practicality, the actual implementation. So you have the theory and the application. So fiqh becomes now the application. The rule that you have, apply them, and that's the person now applying those in fiqh and to situation and circumstance. So also concerning of fiqh, of the person to understand regarding concern fiqh al-nawazil, which also is like a science is a science within fiqh. That fiqh and nawazil, so we have new matter that are occurring. How do we apply those things? What are the rules and guides that we follow regarding fiqh and nawazil? So the person having knowledge in that field also a fiqh and nawazil. So a person may be an alim, but in fiqh al-nawazil, things we said are not contemporary matters, things that we're dealing with at the moment. You understand? Not everyone may be qualified to discuss those matters. Right? And we're saying that, that we said before, that sometimes I find these things that we're facing today, I will find that the challenge of today, you understand, regarding what's going on around the world, you find people are talking about those things, then in most part, they're not from the kibar mashaykh. But they're the quickest to speak. Especially considering what's been going on for the past years, for the past year or two. You find that people who are speaking the most about this wrong, this right, this, and all going on, they're not from the kibar mashaykh. You understand? So what do they understand of fiqh al-nawazil? But I said, the problem is, they're the quickest to speak. Even to do what we see online. So that become a problem where those things also have guidelines and rules. Also, next area concern that relates to fiqh is al-fatwa wa adab al-futya. What's the rules regarding fatwa and its guidelines? So there's rules for a person to give a fatwa. Then you have to know what's the guidelines and the rules that are in place. So you might find most of those, again said, most of those you see giving fatwa, ask them, if you were to ask them, the ones who are who are quick, which book you have read regarding ahkam al-futya or usul al-fatwa? Which book you have read? Because there's guidelines. So because someone gave a fatwa doesn't mean that you have to repeat, because there's maybe thing attached to that fatwa that he gave that you're applying to something that seems similar but is not similar in full. It doesn't require, that requires a different study. So al-fatawa has its own rules, or can say they have guidelines. So the person will give fatawa after know those guidelines and the principle that they're, and the dawabit that they're, and the qawaid that they're going by. Are you going to find that they keep it's always contradictory. They're contradicting themselves. They haven't seen that they're following anything which is solid. They say this today, then they come back and say something else, because they're not following no principle. So there's no consistency. It is fragmented here and there. It's confusing. So fatawa have their own books, and also concerning fatwa, they have even for the person give fatwa as his own adab. For example, you find that if certain institute, they have what they call but they have like a fatwa course. They have a mufti, so the person is a mufti course. What's a mufti course? You understand? So what would you study in a mufti course? Then when you finish that course and you become qualified as a mufti, because you study a course for 2 years, what is involved in that course? Maybe it's legitimate, but said normally said that it, and you find some of the person who finished that mufti course is a young boy, but he has gone through a 2-year program, a 1-year program that is titled the mufti course. You finish it and you are considered to be a mufti. But is that really the case? So said those are the confusions. You find out, so the interview person, my name is Mufti Fulan, my name is Mufti Fulan. How you became a mufti? Then also in fiqh, you have concerns. So you have qada, which is now matter regarding qada, which is the people who are judges. So in fiqh, you have an area regarding al-qada, who are those people that will study to become judges. For example, in particular countries that they have a college, an institute, a higher study, only for people being prepared to be judges. So be a program for years, but the person that is geared to preparing people to be somewhat judges. And they've said books, and even books regarding concerning the thing that the judge would deal with. You have books specific concerning topics that the judge deal with. So, for example, a judge, you go to a judge regarding concerning that salat. You go to the judge, to the court, and say, Judge, I want to ask you, what's the ruling regarding reading Fatiha in my salat? Or that's not you understand? That's fatwa. That doesn't require a judge. Because the judge is there concerning that is khusumat. If there's khilaf between individuals, they need to, you understand, come to a judgment on matters regarding differences that occur between people. Or a person have broken the law, and then certain things the case need to be looked into, and then the appropriate judgment passed on them regarding that crime. So the judge is not there to answer everything. Reading of Fatiha, not reading of Fatiha, that's for the mufti. The judge deals with people who have real difference between husband and wife, a person who killed, you understand, these are the things the judge deals concerning hudud and the likes. So you have books that are geared towards, for the person to know what are the things that will be covered by the judge. Well, because a person might come to the judge regarding matters regarding that a person who leaves salat does not pray. So it's not for, a person might give a fatwa, but it doesn't mean that the person who leaves salat kafir. I believe the person, this is an example, a person did not pass a fatwa that I believe the one man taraka salat fahuwa kafir. The judgment regarding that is that a person who leaves salat as a kafir, that a person is a murtad. I've left the fold of Islam. Nam, or a person, but it's not for that mufti to pass the judgment on him by way of the hudud, the had, which is, as they say today, capital punishment. Nam, so it's not for the one who only can execute that is a judge. The only one. So it's not the person, the person could be the alim, the biggest alim in the dunya. If he's not a judge, it's not for him to execute that. He can pass a judgment, but as for what comes with it, then it's not for him. That's not for him. That's for a judge. To say the person, you understand, go through the case, then when the judgment is passed, for example, you're kafir, or the person involved in sihr, or the person involved in zina. So if in this state is not for anyone as a group or a group of people or a group of masjid, a person said that yes, we know that person committed zina, but it's not for anyone to go and punish him because we don't have that authority. Only one who has authority is a judge, an Islamic judge. So that's concerning. So you have difference between a judge and a mufti. A judge, the judgment of a judge is binding to follow. The judgment of a mufti is not binding to follow. You understand? Because the judge, he has an authority which is, he can pass fatwa, but also what he says, it is to be carried out. As for the mufti, he can say he passed judgment, but it doesn't necessarily have to be carried out. Who's that? Aim said, hey, the mufti give fatwa. The mufti, he gives fatwa. You understand? So you might have a person who's a mufti / judge. But a person that his role is just, for example, he's just the mufti. He's the mufti, like I said, he's the mufti of this particular city. So he gives judgment. People ask him questions, he gives answers. Then you have the qadi of the city. The qadi of the city, when you have dispute, you come to him, he will come to a judgment, and whatever judgment he comes to, you have to comply with it. It has to be executed. So that's concerning those matters. So those are the things that said no. So said with hadith, we can somewhat try to cover some of those matters. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, wa billahi ta'ala, tawfiq, wa hadil as-sabil, wal akhir, alhamdulillah.